Switch. Great, thanks. So my name is Sergey. I'm head of the project management office at TypeType at Font Foundry, and we are a single product focused company. So we will be talking about fonts, about typefaces today, and just a couple of words about us. If you don't know us yet, uh, we have established in 2013, quite some time ago, and since then we released over 80 of fonts in our own library, commercial fonts. You can have them through the online store. We have completed over 600 custom projects with many brands globally, and since then we grew to as many as 100 and even more people in the team, which is almost 10 times bigger than the average foundry number in any part of the world. So we're quite big, we're quite experienced in typography, and most of all, we love this product, we love this field. So today we wanted to share some information about fonts that are, we call them secret features that are not so obvious, but really easy to use, and they expand your opportunities in design. So we'll cover just a couple of words about fonts in design in general. Then we'll talk about basic terms and definitions to understand each other better. And then we'll talk about OpenType features and super cool powers of the font and some bonus content. So let's start with font and design. As you know, there are very many different designs in the world, and we will just to mention for comparison the graphic, product, and communication designs in terms of typography. So when we talk about graphic design, we think about aesthetics, about emotions, to be remarkable, to grab attention of the audience. So it covers wide range of tasks, and it's quite versatile. So there are different rules applied to different category of brands, different markets, and when we speak about typography here, it should stand out. But when we talk about product, we need to talk about functionality. It should be useful. It should also bring emotions to your design, to your product, but it should think about integrity more than about senses and meanings and ideas and ideology of your concept. And when we talk about UX and UI, for example, it doesn't really care about how nice the font looks like. It should be adaptive, accessible, it should quickly load on the website, for example, or an application, and should be intuitive. And when we think about communication design, it should be informative. The typography should be the interconnection of the previous two designs, for example. And this is where it should carry values and message and meanings and should be consistent. So sometimes these designs contradict themselves, they're mutually exclusive. And when you think about using typography, you need to keep in mind that the goal defines solution. It's not that every font works everywhere, that every style will be the solution you're looking for. So how users usually see the fonts? We just have a finger and we have a button. So we click the button and there is a glyph letter number on the screen. That's as simple as that. But fonts are software. They actually have several layers of it. They have design in the front and code under the hood. So we will talk about all of this, but in terms of how you can use them in your design and your work. And we will start with some basics and words. So you probably know that there is a word for font and for typeface. And sometimes designers use them as synonyms, but actually there is a difference between them. So when we talk about font, it is one style, one font file, it is one single item. And when we talk about typeface, it's two plus. It's like a font pair, family, subfamily. For example, we have Titinoms Pro Bold, it will be font. But when we have a regular medium bold or even just regular bold of the same Titinoms Pro, it will be already typeface. So when you work with the fonts, it's not a crime to just to miss these definitions, but for you to understand the difference, there is actually a difference. If we look at this in illustrations, it would be like that. And then there is a family and subfamily, two similar words. Family, font family is the widest definition. And subfamily is a set of unified styles of this family. For example, Titanium's Pro is a font family. It has normal, expanded width, condensed, it has italics and everything in between. But when we talk about Titanium's Pro expanded, this would be a subfamily of Titanium's Pro. So in images, it would be like that. And then we have the third group of fonts. They are divided into display or decorative fonts and text. They should be simple. When we talk about decorative fonts, they attract attention. This is your punch of your design. And it should not be like big paragraph or long line of message because it will attract attention, but it's hard to read. Then if you need to send a message after you attracted attention, you need to have a second font, which is either text or subhead. Could be less display, less playful. So one font attracts attention, the second font sends the message. Again, an image for dog lovers this time. One attracts attention, and the second one is the one that actually sends the message and keeps your audience engaged. And some words. So you probably know that there are sans serifs, serifs, handwritten, and slab. They serve different purposes. They have their own psychology. Sans serifs, they work as a modern, as a clean, easy to read, trusted, and really flexible one. So it's one of the most, I think it's the most popular category of the font. Serifs are more elegant usually. They associated with premium, with some classic traditions, but they also could be modern, of course. Handwritten, designers usually use them to highlight the human touch, something cozy, something warm and friendly. So these fonts, they're really hard to read in most cases, so they usually are decorative in this case. And slabs are more of a brutal, more like attention seekers. They are confident, so it's the whole separate world of fonts with serifs, but they are not serifs. There is also this word, maybe you've heard them already, the apertures. It's the degree of openness in a character. So when you pick a font for your design, you need to consider that this grade of openness directly impacts how fast the audience, your target audience, reads the design and how generally open your communications look like. So more static could be closed one, but if you want your message to be easier to read, you should consider open apertures, or something in between the golden middle, which always works. If you heard about line height or leading, it's the distance between neighbor and baseline. So it's how your text vertically aligned to each of the lines. Usually, uh, when we talk about body text, for example, small text, the line height should be larger, like 1, 1.1, 1.2. So there should be space between lines. It makes your users or your target audience easy to read and to understand. It avoids friction of an eye. But when we use large design, bold design, loud design, posters, banners, for example, packaging or logotypes, you can make line height like on this image. You can make it tighter. One can and allow to be intersected with each other. So it's not a crime. The design is the creative area, so you can break all the rules. But if you consider these two distinctive differences, it would make your design look more complete and advanced. There is also the word for terminals, the straight or curved stroke ending. So if you want your typeface be dynamic, for example, in graphic design part we mentioned earlier, you could consider the diagonal cuts, for example, or maybe like on the middle one with the angle. So it's not diagonal, it's not completely upright, but it's flexible. So if you want your fonts to be more stable, more static, you might consider vertical cuts so they kind of stop the eye from rushing through your text. So in interfaces, it would be really more useful to use straight terminals, and curved or diagonal curves could be used in graphic design or communications as well, just for an example. There is also a word for contrast, that the difference of thickness, proportions, and we usually the market expect, for example, premium brands. If we talk about clothing or any other premium field, uh, audience usually expect to see some contrast fonts, some elegant, some airy, some classic, some traditional. In this case, we can consider that we can use contrast fonts. But when we talk about digital brands, startups, or something like Google. Google uses no contrast font geometric sans serifs. Google Sans, there is no difference in stroke at any point of the O, for example. So this could also lead your direction of picking the font depending on what kind of brand you do the job for, or if it's your brand, like what do you want to look like? There is a word for kerning, which is not adjustable by font users, but it's really important. It makes the magic of fonts working integral. Because when we talk about two pairs of glyphs, like A and V, the most obvious example, you can see that they kind of break each other's personal space. And when font is developed, each each two glyphs, each two combinations of all the font are manually adjusted to each other. So your font looks like it's complete, it's not broken. But then there is a spacing and tracking, the one that we can adjust. And usually in interface designs, maybe you as well, many designers used to make like -2% of tracking to make it tighter, to look neat and be very happy about that. That's okay. And this means we adjust spacing and tracking. It does not change the kerning we mentioned earlier. So it changes the length of all the body text, for example. And at last, there is OpenType feature. This is, or just features, the code that font developers integrate during the development. It could be like decorative or technical. It's something that font designers already thought in beforehand that could extend the opportunities and the options for you to choose from when you make a design. I will show some images and examples later. So, do you actually use these features? If you know OpenType features, if you use them, please let us know any reaction, any emoji maybe in the chat. It's always interesting to see how many people know about OpenType features and implement them in the designs. And in the meantime, let's see the decorative and technical features. So decorative are for designers, mostly for graphic design, because they adjust the visuals. They expand the limit of how your text or logotype or packaging could look like. And technical features, they help you to enjoy the work with the typeface. They just help with layout. And we'll start with design features. The most common one in many fonts on the market is the stylistic set features. When you have one like this is the Neue, the first line is the original visuals, the original design of the font. And this is Scandinavian sans serif. This is kind of slightly brutal. This is a very confident font, but you may like its vibe, but it's too sharp, for example. It has alternative stylistic set. So on the second line, as you can see, some glyphs are changed. They become softer, but the visuals, the idea, the whole feel of the font still feels the same as the Scandinavian sans serif. But it's softer. It might match your design, your concept, your brand much more than the original one. And it's already included. It's pre-designed. The same goes for contrast font, for example, the Core is one of the new fonts of type. It has contrast, it's quite neutral on the first line, but if you want to add some character, some sharpness for it, it has an alternative stylistic set which adds some serifs like to S and A, for example, and it changes how the font becomes. It becomes more direful, I would say, also with a couple of clicks. The stylistic sets also include alternative forms. For example, your logotype may have one single story A, like on the right, but the font has two-story A, like on the left. Most likely, your font has already included the alternative one, so you can toggle them on, and it will be consistent throughout all of your communications. Or make a K-legs, for example, softer and smoother. Or maybe you enjoy the font, but there is only one glyph like G, very brutal one, and you want to have it geometrically perfect. There is, in Neue, there is this alternative glyphs already designed, so you can just switch them and have the required visuals. This is something we invite you to explore in your existing font or in new fonts when you think about your next project. There are also ligatures. They could be standard, like FY, FI, FL. You know them, most likely you've seen them everywhere. They are turned on by default. But there are also other ligatures, like not as frequent. They could be rare, they could be also standard, but toggled on by default, but you might not know about them in the font. Like on this slide, for example, or if you work with Cyrillic fonts, they are harder to work with, and they also can have some very specific, very unusual ligatures that make them look like artistically designed. Or just a random example, you may have the word casa in three glyphs, and it looks like a logo already, but it's already pre-designed. The features could also include alternative diacritics, like these Hungarian words. The diacritics, like in E, the second glyph, could just be tightly connected to it, so you don't have to manually adjust them. Or it can go even deeper, like in U and O, for example, and J gets a serif, so you can have your entire image of the font of the word changed with this single feature. And sometimes you may think out of the box and use them as a emoji, for example, or bigger and larger, something more creative and colorful, just by adding something above it. And there is also Titaniuris, for example, Titaniuris Pro. I made it tighter on this page. On the first line, it is the original one. So we want to, for example, we design an ad for a good family-friendly restaurant. It's cozy and we want it to be cozy. And it looks okay in the first line, but something is missing. Then there is a feature called upright cursive, which changes the entire visual of the font to the second line. So it becomes friendlier, playful, and you don't have to redraw them. You just pick the font you like, you check the stylistic set, it might be there like in Titaniuris Pro, and you just have the new visuals, outstanding visuals to reach the needed emotion you wanted to have. And there's, for example, the table numbers. They're used in tables, in big data, in charts, when you need to have your numbers aligned vertically perfectly well. Because when we talk about standard numbers, they are not of the same proportion, and the box they are fixed in the font itself, it's of different width. So they just, if you make them one by one, the lines are not perfectly aligned. But in mono fonts, in tabular numbers, they will be aligned. Usually, this feature can be also toggled on in Figma, in Illustrator. We'll talk about that later. So you can toggle it on and all your numbers align within the design you already made, for example. Numbers could also go in circles. This goes back to the graphic design again. So it could be outlined or filled in. For example, most of our fonts, if not all, they have these numbers included in the style of the font. So you can make a fancier list, for example. So it attracts attention, it makes a visual neat, and it proves that you didn't design this, like manually didn't waste hours to make these numbers. You just put them in, toggled on, and everything works. Or you can make a links like filled in within the text. So it also looks nice. And it already aligned, the size of the number in circle is aligned with the text, rebalanced. So it works as it should. You don't have to readjust it. Or you might use it on the image again. Numbers could go in circles and squares, in diamonds, in ovals, and all of these shapes, again, like I mentioned, in the style of the original font. So if the font is wide, like on the fourth line, on the bottom line, the circles will be adjusted accordingly, so they don't look alien in the font. There is also a feature much less used, but it's really important that sometimes there are a pair of glyphs that don't work well with each other, like J and G and J, and it's just because of the construction of the skeleton of the glyphs. On this page, it will be clear to see. With this feature, the font adjusts, so it makes more space, like for example, on the bottom half of the pair. And it does not, as you can see, it does not pull them far from each other. With this feature, they just make more air inside. It doesn't look sticking to each other. So it could be useful in small sizes, for example, when you don't have enough air in your design, or it could be also useful in big design, like in big banner as well. So it just makes everything perfectly balanced. And there are also technical features, like I mentioned. So the most popular one, you most likely saw it on even your devices, on your mobile gadgets. When you put two dashes one by one, it automatically converts into one bigger dash. So it works the same with the three dashes, for example. This is called contextual alternative. So it can be also toggled on by default. In some fonts, it's toggled off by default. So you could explore it and see how it looks like, as well as the ordinals, for example. When you need to find this glyph or number real quick and you don't have time for exploring the char map of your font or just Google it, you can type NO and dot and it will be automatically converted into a single glyph. Again, perfectly balanced if this typeface supports it. And now we go to one of the most sensitive topics for many designers because it's really a big pain point when you design interfaces and even when you design graphic design concept. When you have all numbers or all caps, for example, in your design, the bracket, the dash, the semicolon, for example, they are adjusted to lower cases by default. That's not a mistake, that's how fonts work. But if your design consists only of numbers and caps, or maybe your logo type consists of it and it has brackets, for example, there is a feature called case-sensitive punctuation. Usually designers have to adjust baseline, like we select one bracket, we readjust in the text box, we readjust the baseline, or we make one additional text block and put it over the previous one. And so a lot of unnecessary work is involved in this. And if you need to redo something, you kind of start over again. With this feature, you don't have to start over. So you just click on the case sensitive punctuation feature and everything is aligned to the upper cases and to the numbers. So you can compare the options. It looks completely finished and just, I don't know, I have the satisfaction feeling when I look at the second line. There is also a feature included in several fonts. You probably saw them. Sometimes numbers have slash in it, slash zero. And it's made to make it distinctive from the O glyph. Like on the second line, you can see that it look different. It's working in mono font and it's working in password generators. For example, when you have to retype it or remember it or to make a clear distinction. And there is also another feature for numbers, which could be useful in your designs. This is fractions. In many fonts, they are designed again. It's not just scaled down, they're rebalanced. Each, for example, 1 second, they rebalanced within one single glyph. So you type 1/2 and they automatically convert to fractions. It saves you time. You don't have to redesign. You don't have to manually adjust them. You don't have to look for a tooltip icon for it. It's already there in the font. So the question is where to find these features. They are supported in all of the Adobe suite. They support it in Figma, in CorelDRAW, and Apple's Office kit, like Keynote, for example. Unfortunately, they are not supported in Microsoft Office yet, so you cannot use these features there. But they're supported in this popular environment and on the website. I will show you that later. So in Figma, we go to typography section. There is a small tiny button of settings in the bottom right corner. So we go there and we have basics and details tabs. Usually people stop at basics because it's turned on by default, but the magic happens in the details tab. So there is the list of all the features this specific font supports. So they are grouped by styles for numbers. They are grouped for punctuation, for example, case sensitive for ligatures. They're grouped for stylistic sets like on the image right now. So next time you work with Figma, please check this out if you haven't yet. Maybe you will find a lot of interesting alternatives already built in the font you're working with. So it's just you can hover your mouse over the check mark before pressing it. You will see the preview of what letters will be changed and how they will look like after you toggle it on. In design, there are more ways to toggle it on. So you, for example, you have a body text block and you just highlight one glyph and there will be alternative options available right there. Or you can press this little hardly noticeable O button, and you will have the list of alternatives available for all of this box. And sometimes you can go to glyphs, for example. You can see all the additional alternatives just to copy paste them, or you can go to character, then go to OpenType, stylistic set, and choose any stylistic set or any additional feature you can see on the screen. So contextual alternatives, all small caps, like fractions, ordinals, and all of table lining, for example. So all of the features are there in this drop down menu. Ligatures in Figma works the very same way because they are in the letter forms section of the details of the typography settings. But in Illustrator, for example, you have this window of OpenType features, and standard ligatures are turned on by default, and the rare ligatures are there to toggle them if you need them. If you know that this font, the particular font, has this feature of rare ligatures. And in CSS, you should type this line into your code. So, for example, if you know that SS1 is about one story A in this particular font, so you'll just type it down, and on your live product, it will be automatically converted to the needed visuals. Why would you need features? First of all, as I mentioned, it increases the speed of work with typeface, as well as it decreases the routine repetitive actions you have to do again and again and again. Usually, the modern fonts, they already think about it before release of the product. So when you have your font, it most likely already has some cuts to make you work with typeface faster and easier, much easier. It's ending really beautiful when we talk about ligatures, about alternative sets, about some additional icons, for example, tooltips inside the font. It makes it organic, all of the design, and it also strengthens your hard skills. It doesn't matter where you work, or like you're individual designer or in-house designer, or if you work in agency for big brands, for any other brands. It just displays that you know the colors, you know the brandings, you know the logotypes, you know the layouts, and you also know the typefaces. Not just to pick look good in like serif, for example, for display fonts. It's not enough, but you know how it works, you know what else it already has. So it strengthens you as a specialist, and it maybe if you're in competition, you may win it by proving your expertise in the typeface. So apart from that, it expands the opportunities to design as you desire. You may have these visuals in your head of perfect design, and most likely typeface already is ready to help you with that. And then there is a question like, what if I don't have this font yet, like any of type font, and I don't want to buy it before I discovered all the features? There is a thing called specimen. It's font passport. All of the type foundries have them, and we have them as well. So you go to the website, to the page of specific font you want to discover, specific typeface. There is a button of specimen. In this document, you can have all the styles, all the text samples from big to medium to small, so you can see how the font behaves before you get this font. And it also has all list of the features, including the name of them, the number of them, so you can test them before you buy. And you can see how these features work even on your website. And it also, these documents have all the glyphs that are included in the font, all the characters, all the icons, all the alternatives, all the ligatures, everything is displayed in that. So you can see how convenient or how comprehensive each font is for your project, for your current projects, and maybe for your future projects. You can see that there's sometimes, usually there are 20, up to 20 stylistic sets, and plus technical features like mentioned, audio also case sensitive. They could be listed separately in the document. And some bonus content I mentioned. The main part is over. I hope that was helpful or new, or at least half new for you, because it's really nice to explore and see the options. But there are also additional options we'll just briefly mention. You all know the mono font. They are the same width, they look like coding, like in terminal, like IT thing. But there is also unibit font. So in the first case, there is equal box for each glyph. So they are located on the equal distance from each other. They are very technically aligned. But in unibit font, the font is actually just regular one, but there is one hook. Let's look at TT Pro. When you change the boldness, the weight, the style of the regular font, like most of the fonts on the market, the line becomes longer. It's a natural process because the font becomes heavier. It has to take space from around, so it stretches naturally. But in Unibit font, it still looks not like a mono, not like spacious with large spacing, but it is of the same length regarding the length of the line. So you just change the boldness, it goes inwards, it becomes heavier inwards, so the line doesn't stretch. It's very, very helpful in interface design, in UI, and sometimes in already ready to use mockups, for example, for a project when you have your perfect design, but you feel like let's change it from demi-bold to bold, for example, and everything is ruined after that because of one pixel adjustment. In Unibit fonts, there is no such problem. It's just already there and it keeps everything clean without need to readjust it manually. And if we compare this monobit line with the unibit line, you see that both of them are of the same length, but the first one looks too spacious. And if you start to change tracking or spacing manually, it just breaks everything. But the right one, the unibit line, is just perfect. There is also variable technology. I would really love to talk about it much more because it has a lot of opportunities for your design, for your motion, for being as precise as possible. But sadly, now I have to just to mention it. Usually in variable fonts, there are three axes. On the image on the right, you can see like in Figma, for example, if the font supports variable technology, there is the third tab in typography setting. So you can visually choose how thick, for example, your font should be. It's not like you're choosing from preset styles like light, regal, medium, bold. You have only one file, only one uh, line in the dropout menu, and then you have to adjust it manually. So you see the change right when you move it. The slant, the width, and the weight can be changed, interchanged with each other, so you have your perfect visuals right live. And sometimes the variable technology is not just about these three axes. Sometimes it can become from display font, from very creative one, it goes live to a very calm one, to stable, to text font. And you can find any in-between instance between them. So it can be very useful and very nice to see. For example, we had a case, the Japanese company Shift Brain. We had our TT Gnomes Pro and it was already wide to 125 points, for example, some technical information. But the client said that we need wider, we need even wider and even wider. Each iteration was wider, and we didn't understand why. Why exactly? We made a super wide, extremely wide uh, font for them, and they used it in motion. So they animated the font, it was naturally working. They didn't have to draw all of these points of animations, it was already there, built in. If you're interested, please visit our website. We have an article about that. I'll have the link to the blog later. So if you're interested, then you can read the article and see how the font performs on their website. So you can see how fancy it can be and how your product can become alive just with the font. Typefaces have icons on them, especially typefaces. Uh, we have them, like, for example, if you see my points of the third line, we have TT trailers, which is movie themed font, and we have these icons built in, like glasses for 3D, like teddy bear, ticket, they're themed. Or we have TT Interfaces Pro. It has interface icons in it, tooltips and images. All of this already built in, already scaled to the size of your text. So you don't have to have two items on your webs in your design, for example, in website on bottom. You have one text block, everything is within. If you change the size of the text, for example, the icon changes accordingly. You don't have to readjust it. It works like a vector image, like SVG, so it scales up, scales down without losing its quality. You can use them as button, you can use them as a part of your interface, you can use them as just a sole item, like an icon in a block. Like this set is from Titanoms Pro. It's just updated recently, one of our best sellers. We did a research and created a comprehensive set of interface icons that match the visuals of Titanoms Pro. So if you use them with this font, it looks very native and very organic. So we tried to cover all of the most frequently used icons and polished them, drawn them from the scratch and polished to have the unified visuals. So please, if you have Tignoms Pro or if you're going to get it soon, explore the latest version. It has these very nice icons to use with the design. I mentioned Shift Brain, the Japanese company earlier. There is another cool thing that we did with them. We added the icons, the custom icons of their team straight to the font. So they could find their themselves right in the font file or type them from the keyboard and insert in any text block with this typeface. So it's a really nice, it's really fun. It makes the font feel yours. So they feel this is their font. They have their changes there, the visual changes, the customized font, and they have their own team already built in into the font. Or sometimes we go the other way. We don't add additional icons to the font, but we rather adjust and customize the existing one. For example, like Pet Choy Case from Vietnamese company. They make food for pets. So if they have the packaging designed for dog food, their fonts already have dogs like right inside the glyphs. They have the, like you can see on the left, the image like that, or they have tails, the ears, like diacritics changed to the themed elements of a dog. So if they make a cat food design package, they use the cat stylistic set. So the icons is there. It's also, the font becomes integral part of all of the design. It works very, very neat and very, I'd say, natural. So you trust this brand, you feel cute first of all, and then you trust the brand and you see that they work with all levels of communications, all levels of design, and they care about how they look like just by adding icons and diacritics. And also, most fonts have arrows. Usually we used to just regular, like this one, regular arrow, but fonts can have their own styled one. From hands, like on the first line, to just contrast one, like the third line, or a very curvy one, like on the last line. So, and they match with the visuals of the font as well as the icons match. So our fonts have their arrows, and if you explore our typefaces, please pay attention that that might be very useful in your designs as well. So by that, we dare you to explore. If you have your font library already installed, just explore them, and maybe you will have a lot of nice and good surprises discovered during that. And we also dare you to create, because typeface can be not just fonts you type with. It can be a powerful tool for you to use, not just for to make it handy like in technical features I mentioned, but also to find an alternative solutions for your existing designs already. If you already use our fonts in your designs, just check out if you didn't notice any icons there, for example, or features, or if there is a new update of this font, because we update our fonts regularly, we add something cool and new each and every time. And this is QR code for our trial library. Please feel free to download our font and use them in your mockups, in your designs, in your project. Before the production, it's free of charge, so you can just see how the font will work in your future project. And once you're ready to go with it, just reach out to us and we'll help you with licensing as transparently as possible. In our library, all glyphs are included, so it's not limited versions of the font. It's completely fully functional typefaces. All of our library, 80 plus fonts are available there. All features I mentioned are included, all icons, all technical features, all alternative sets. You can have them, you can see how they work. And when you visit this page anytime, you can be sure that at this particular moment, all of the fonts listed are up to date. When we update our fonts, we update our trials at the very same time. So if you see a good update on our social media, for example, just visit this page and get the latest version of the font and see if this is the font you are looking for. And another QR code for our blog. If you're interested to read about typography in general, about showcases, about font pairing, about variable technology I mentioned, or our experimental fonts, please visit this page and enjoy reading. We try to explain how typography works, what should you consider in your designs, in your project, and just generally share our internal knowledge with you. So at this point, my part is over. Thank you very much for coming in, for listening. If you have any questions, please just let me know in the chat or reach out to us anytime later. And let me know if this information was new to you. Just hit any button. Yeah, thank you. So have a nice day ahead and keep up with us. We will have more webinars coming soon. Thank you.